The month of Elul is here, the month of preparation before Rosh Hashanah, the month of reflecting on ourselves and on our behavior so that we may draw closer to God. And this year I find myself returning to the book Enter These Gates, Meditations for the Days of Awe. We looked at some of these for Elul Reflections last year. They by Alden Solovy, now student rabbi Alden Solovy. And I know that after I shared some readings from this, I know a number of members of our community actually bought a copy of this and brought it with them during the High Holy Days to use as reflections, as kavanot, as intentions during some of our prayers, which was very special for me, and I actually shared it with student Rabbi Alden as well, and he was deeply touched. The reading today is, I think, extremely appropriate for the very beginning of the month of Elul. It asks a question. It's called, Am I ready? Am I ready to cast away my sins, the little loves that I cling to, that help me survive, the ones that I hold on to year after year, that I pretend do no harm to me, to others, to God? Am I ready to cast away my sins, the accidental and the purposeful misdeeds that I refuse to amend, so that I can stay comfortable in the discomfort of my transgressions? Am I ready, finally ready, to be free? I really like this reading by student Rabbi Alden Solovy at the beginning of the month of Elul. Firstly, there's the repeated theme, am I ready to cast away my sins? This is a reference to Tashlich, to the ceremony of Tashlich, where we cast away our sins. It's an interesting custom. Originally, the rabbis disliked it intensely because it involves carrying on a festival. But then they created liturgy for it and made it extremely Jewish. It was a custom that the community itself created, not the rabbis, interestingly enough. The rabbis, after disliking it for a while, ended up creating liturgy and making it very Jewish. But the two verses, am I ready to cast away my sins, the little loves that I cling to that help me survive? I think that's really powerful, because we define ourselves by who we are and by how others see us, but we know ourselves better than anyone, or at least we convince ourselves that we do. We know what goes on inside our mind, at least, and that nobody else knows. And that gives us a sense of survival, a survival of the self, a survival of this is who I am based on the deeds, and I do these deeds for reasons that only I understand. And so I like the idea of the little loves, the sins that I cling to that help me survive. Because sometimes our vices are things that we do that aren't totally healthy for us, and the things that we do to get by. And so, but what he adds is that these are the things that we pretend do no harm, but they actually do. We might excuse them as survival mechanisms, but actually they do harm. They do harm to me, to others, to God. And this is an interesting way of phrasing this, actually, because in our Jewish tradition we have two different kinds of mitzvah, bein adam lechavero and bein adam lamakom, between a person and their companion, and between a person and God. And particularly sins between a person and their companion, and a person and God. And so when it comes to the High Holy Days, we actually atone particularly for the sins between a person and our companions by apologizing to those people, by explaining to them that we're changing our behavior. And so when it comes to the High Holy Day services, Rosh Hashanah and particularly Yom Kippur, that's when we atone for the sins between a person and God. But what student Rabbi Alden Solovy writes here is that there are three, actually. Not just between us and other people and us and God, but sins between us and ourselves. And that adds a really interesting personal dimension that I find extremely powerful. And then he moves into the idea that sins are accidental and purposeful misdeeds that we refuse to amend. There are ways of being. They're the things that we know, the things we've always done. And the more that we do them, the less we see the harm that's caused by them. And so they become part of who we are. And so that's why I think it's really interesting at the end when he says, am I ready, finally ready to be free? Free of the burden, free of that being weighed down by our misdeeds, being weighed down by the things that have defined us in negative ways, so that we actually remain comfortable, as he says, comfortable in the discomfort of our transgressions. And so this High Holy Day period, particularly the month of Elul, is a time where we ask ourselves, how can I get rid of these things? How can I let go? What do I need to let go of? What actually makes me uncomfortable? What makes other people uncomfortable? What is it that is negative in myself that I can actually change, that I've become so used to that I may not even realize how negative it is? And so having this as the first reading, our first reading in the month of Elul, for me is very powerful because it asks us to confront ourselves fully. It asks us to really explore, who am I? As in last week's, who am I? What is my strength? What is my power? Now we're being asked, what are my misdeeds? What makes me and others uncomfortable? What are my transgressions? What have I become so used to that I don't even realize how negative it is? So for me, I think this is an extremely powerful reading that asks us, as in the beginning question, am I ready? Am I ready for this High Holy Day season? Am I ready to let go of all of these things? And with that commentary in mind again, I'll share this reading again. Am I ready? By student Rabbi Alden Solovy. Am I ready to cast away my sins, the little loves that I cling to that help me survive, the ones that I hold on to year after year that I pretend do no harm to me, to others, to God? Am I ready to cast away my sins, the accidental and the purposeful misdeeds that I refuse to amend, so that I can stay comfortable in the discomfort of my transgressions? Am I ready, finally ready, to be free? I hope to be able to see you in our service this evening, in Torah study tomorrow, and in our Shabbat Shacharit service. It's really lovely to see more and more people coming to the Shabbat Shacharit service again. I really do encourage you to join us, especially as we're able to look at Torah, to read from Torah. It, for me, is a very different kind of service to the Friday night service, which is also wonderful, of course. And not only do I hope to see you then, but I hope that this start of Elul, this period, this month before Rosh Hashanah, I hope that it is a powerful, moving time that helps you work out that core question, am I ready? I hope to see you soon and wish you Shabbat Shalom.